We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you hear this, it will be Thursday. I'm recording it on Wednesday night. My guest tonight is Eric, but this is a weird situation. We threatened to do this before, and so we're going to do it. So, this is the Rational Boomer podcast, but Eric is on the other end also recording. So, this is also the Analytical Iowan podcast, right, Eric?
Yes, it is. Decided to give this a shot. It saves us from recording two episodes back to back talking about the exact same stuff because the conversation would pretty much go the exact same way. And this way, if you are listening to the Analytical Island podcast and you haven't found Mike, now you get introduced to Mike and you get introduced to the Rational Boomer. So uh, let's just get into it. We got a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about. And if you are a normal viewer of the Rational Boomer um, podcast listener and you haven't connected with Eric yet, what the fuck are you doing? How many times I got to have this motherfucker on before you get a fucking clue? All right. I know most people have already connected to you, I would hope. If not, they'll have a chance here today and watching this podcast. Yeah, Eric, I was just telling you, at the end of the year, Spotify always gives me a rundown of all the things I accomplished with the podcast, how many downloads on Spotify, and all of that sort of thing. And it's always interesting to find out the progression that you made. But as I told you, I noticed a couple of things that I found very interesting. The most listened to podcast that I did last year, all of last year, by a long shot, by about 400% more than the average, was one I did with you on 916. And we were talking about, God knows what. It was a while ago, and I don't remember what I talked about yesterday. So my podcast with Eric was the busiest, most listened to podcast of the whole year for the Rational Boomer podcast. And on 816, that one had the most comments. I guess I'm going to have to be nicer to you. If you're pulling
No,
that
you
kind
don't
of
have.
crowd, I'm going to have to be a better guy to you. So anyway,
No. Well, no, if you start being too nice to me, I start getting a little worried. But I'm trying to
I don't want to
remember
make
what
it
was going on
weird,
in
but
September.
no, who
That we could what
remembers
we could
that?
have been talking about. There's always stuff to talk about. Um,
I think what
what
happened probably is, you're going down the list, and you see the videos that you're going to pick out, and you can see the faces, and they saw your face and my face, and they go, "Oh fuck, that's a thirst trap. Look at those two snacks."
exactly? That's got to be it. That's got to be it.
Yeah. So we're also doing the Analytical Iowan podcast too. So I don't know how to do this, whether to take control or let you take control, or we'll just kind of go back and forth.
Let's just go back and forth like we always do. We always have a good conversation. I mean, there's never a shortage of things to talk about. I think I say that at the end of almost every one of my episodes. It's like, I'll be back tomorrow. We've always got stuff to talk about because with this administration, politics is anything but boring right now.
Absolutely. And I think one of the first things you were talking about bringing up was this election in Tennessee with
Yeah.
Afton Bain versus Matt Van Epps, the Republican. The Republican won. He won by just under 9 points, which is interesting because Donald Trump won that same district by 22 points. And we were talking about Will and some other people that say, well, I'm upset because we didn't win. The fact of the matter is, it is a win and not just a consolation prize. It sets a tone for maybe the attitude amongst voters out there. That's quite a loss in support in just a year. 14 points or whatever, or 13 points. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's what I was saying when I did my TikTok on it, and I think I covered it on yesterday's podcast a little bit, was when you're talking about 13-point swing, this should have been a slam dunk for Republicans. They should have won this walking away and not even thinking about it. Democrats don't typically put up this kind of a fight. Now, it was a special election. It does change things some. But Democrats put in tons of money. Republicans put in lots of money in this fight. And even if we didn't win it, She's running again next November, is what I heard.
Right.
And if she continues to make gains, plus she could turn around and say, "You guys could have voted for me last year, and here's all the things he didn't accomplish, all the things he did wrong." She's got plenty to run on. And even if she doesn't win next November, because it was a closer contest than they were expecting, they're going to have to keep putting money there, which draws money from other races. And or they're going to have to tap their donors for even more and even more. So it's going to become strategy. We have a case here in Tennessee where maybe that draws an extra couple $1 million, but there's a race they had to pull from because they thought they were going to win somewhere else, and now they lose that one, and we pick up a seat.
Well, the other thing to consider about this Tennessee election, come November, there was about 200,000 people that voted in this election on Tuesday. There is a total of 460,000 registered voters in that district. So there were a lot of Democrats that didn't get off the couch and vote. So, I mean, you can almost expect most of the Republicans voted because they always vote like that. But there were Democrats that sat on the couch. If after they see what happens and how things continue to go to shit under the Republicans, it's conceivable that Bain could win in November, which I'd be cool with, and it would be interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean that's another side of it. We're dealing with a special election. It was a Tuesday in December. It's not the first Tuesday in November. It changes things. Some people will not get out and vote on non-election days, non-traditional election days, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, because some people know, okay, first Tuesday in November, I'm going to go vote. There are some people who look forward to that day every year. Like they're like, okay, I know I got to go vote. Um, but then when these special elections happen on odd Tuesdays in random months, they don't always show up. And sometimes it's harder for people to get off multiple times a year when you got to work and do all these things. Um, so who knows what November is going to bring, and who knows how bad the perception of the Republican Party is going to be between here and November.
Well, the thing people have to understand too is they'll say, yeah, there's a 13% loss to the Republicans. Donald Trump had 22%. Now it's down to just under 9%. So what? Big deal. I saw somebody put up a bunch of statistics. There are at least a couple of dozen, if not 3 dozen seats where Republicans won in the last election by 0 to 4%. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
another several dozen, or at least 3 or 4 dozen, that won between 4 and 10%. So the point of that is if there was a 13% swing in a very red district in a very red state, these other people that won by less than 13%, maybe a lot less than 13%, you can understand why they might be getting a little fucking nervous because that's a trend throughout the country. People are getting tired of Republicans and tired of dealing with what they're dealing with. So all those people could be in trouble.
Exactly. And with that, one of the things that I had a commenter come to my YouTube page and dropped a comment. Of course, I blocked them because they were a Trump humper. But they
Yeah.
came out and said, "Well, I'm not sick of Donald Trump yet. Oh, he's doing great." But Donald Trump's endorsement was worth at least 10 percentage points. This was before the election. Well, if Donald Trump's endorsement was worth 10 points, that means you take 10 points, percentage points away, assuming that math is right. Without his endorsement, Afton Bain wins. Period. And if this guy pisses off Donald Trump between here and there, gets called a rhino and everything else, Afton Bain wins next November. it the whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, that they're riding on the word of one guy, and he could ultimately end up not being a factor between here and next November. He could kick the bucket tomorrow with everything we're seeing, you know, or they could run him out of town on a rail after the Epstein files get released.
But the thing about it is that the idea that Donald Trump's endorsement right now is worth 10% is silly because there's been so many people that he's endorsed that have lost. I would
Hmm.
submit to this: if Van Epps would have spoke against Donald Trump and he didn't get the endorsement, he might have won by 18%
Maybe
because
that's
he's
entirely
pushing against
possible.
Donald Trump. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, the pushback against Donald Trump is growing. I mean, Donald Trump is once again, he's trying to get the Republicans to do what he wants, and they're not listening. It is becoming more and more evident that they're getting ready to do something, and Donald Trump doesn't see it yet.
No, he's oblivious. He's too delusional and thinks he's far too important. He's bought into his press clippings and he thinks the Republicans are all under control under his power. I think he's starting to get a sense though that he's losing some power and he can't manage everything. Um, but as you said, Donald Trump, if you see him on TV, he looks sick, he sounds sick, and he just sounds deranged. When people talk about Trump derangement syndrome, I think it's more a definition of who Donald Trump is. He's definitely deranged. I mean, he's talking about Ilhan Omar being garbage, reporters being piggies. I mean, he's doing things that not even he would do. He's not under control of his words and his mind. And it's just going to get worse, decidedly
It,
worse over the next month or so.
oh, it's definitely going to get worse as the stress and the pressure keeps growing. I mean, he's sundowning. And for those that don't know, the way I understand sundowning, and I could be wrong here, but it's basically where you get your nights and your days mixed up when you're an older person, and you have that burst of energy middle of the night, and you're up for 3, 4 hours at a time, and then you can't sleep, so you're doing all sorts of things. But then when the sun's up, you're exhausted, you're sleeping, you're napping, like we see him napping in public. Well, just the other night, he was out tweeting on True Social for 3 hours, 160 to 180 posts in 3 hours, about a post a minute. Nothing but nonsense in most cases, but it's because he was just awake and his mind was racing and he had to vent it to somebody because nobody else was around.
Well, he's going to need some more cabinet meetings because he looks like he got a pretty good rest there. He got some sleep in during the cabinet meeting.
Yes.
After everybody went around the horn and kissed his ass, he sat there with his eyes shut. I was telling somebody, because he's so vain, I'm thinking maybe he's hoping for a another stroke so that he could match both sides of his face, get them both drooping
Maybe.
in the same direction, and then people will think he's normal. He's just angry.
Well, maybe. But yeah, he looked like he was asleep. And the whole thing, they went around the horn to saying all those things that they were grateful for Donald Trump for. That's just trademark narcissism. He has to have that ego boost. He can't have the rallies. He can't do those kind of things anymore. He's not getting the adulation of fans, but he needs that constant affirmation about how great he is, and if he just needs it all the time, and keeps getting bigger and bigger.
We're going to talk about the Epstein files soon enough, but uh, like I've always said, whether it be the Epstein files, there'll always be something else that is knocking at Donald Trump's door and may end up being the thing that knocks him over. And of course, we're talking about the Pete Hegseth thing. We've all
Mhm.
talked about the bombing of the boats in the Caribbean and then the double tap on the survivors and how that's just categorically illegal. Uh, but something else happened yesterday as you're listening to this. Uh, well, it's coming out today as you're listening to this on Thursday. Uh, the Pentagon IG is coming out with a report on his whole Signalgate situation. And the previews are telling us that this is suggesting that he, without question, put military personnel in danger by doing what he's done. It'll be interesting to see what the report says. That may not be the thing that takes Hegseth down, but this is not helping him. He is getting hit from all sides.
No, it's not going to help him. One of the preliminary reports, I saw something about it, that with this report, it might have also had something to do in there with uh, these attacks on these boats, that he might have
Yeah.
put information about the attacks and the double tap on Signal, which we know is an unsecure app. It is not supposed to be used for military or for government use or classified information or anything like that. It's not even supposed to be on government phones, but they do. And of course, nothing happens right now. Um, With this whole thing, Pete Hegseth is going to end up being a scapegoat for Donald Trump. I think ultimately Donald Trump is going to get rid of Pete Hegseth one way or the other, whether he lets Congress do its thing and impeach and remove him, whether he asks for a resignation or straight fires him. I don't think Pete Hegseth makes it through the end of Donald Trump's term as president as uh, Secretary of Defense.
Well, I don't think he does. There are any number of reasons why he should be fired. There's going to come a point where there's a breaking point, but I'm not so sure Donald Trump's not going to get some egg on him either, because I think it was Carolyn Levitt or somebody else who was a spokesperson for the White House before all this stuff happened. They specifically said it's on video that all these actions come directly from the president through Pete Hegseth to whoever carries it out. So they acknowledge that they were part and parcel, the people behind the decision making to do this sort of thing. Um, and and when they had this press conference, Donald Trump did what he always does. I don't know anything. Pete Hegseth said, "Well, I was there for the first one, but I got busy and left. But the admiral did whatever he's supposed to do, and he made the right choice." So he basically pawned it off on the admiral. Now, today, Thursday, as you're listening to this, the admiral is going to testify in front of members of Congress. I don't know which one, which committee, but he's going to testify in front of the committee. So what the hell is he going to say? He made a bad, regardless of if Trump told him or Pete Hegseth told him, his choice to do that, that is against the code of conduct without question. He should have ignored that order, but he didn't. Anyway, he's going to have to testify in front of Congress. Is he going to say, yeah, it was all me. I just went rogue and they didn't have anything to do with it? I doubt it. I doubt he's going to submarine his whole career. For all intents and purposes, he seems to be a legitimate uh, military guy, a war hero, if you will. Uh, Maybe he does hold close the code of conduct. It'll be interesting to see what he says because he could say, I got this order from Trump. I got this order from Pegseth. I mean, he would have almost had to have got it from one of those two to do this. So I'll be interested to see if we get the truth out of this motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what he says to Congress. And as far as where, that's another thing that's a problem for Pete Hegseth. Um, both chambers of Congress, the House and the Senate, are doing bipartisan investigations into this. And something tells me that if they both find that there was something here, that they probably will end up with the votes to remove Hegseth um, ultimately. And that's not a good look for Donnie. His own party is revolting against him when with this, they're doing what they should have done along all the while and said, okay, we're going to look into this. The Democrats are right. We need to look into this. We can't just sugarcoat it and say it's okay. It's just what Donnie does. And there could come out of this, depending on what the investigation leads, it could also lead to a means to impeach and remove Donald Trump, besides Pete Hegseth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think when we saw the vote on the Epstein files to be released and almost unanimously Republicans and Democrats stepped up against him, I think that was an important moment in time because everybody up to that point was afraid to go against Donald Trump for whatever they feared of him for. In that moment in time, they chose the fear of the constituents over the fear of Donald Trump. And once they did it, guess what? Nothing happened to him. Not a fucking thing happened to him. So now they're getting a little more confident, a little more courageous about this. And somebody like Pete Hegseth, this is why we have a bipartisan thing. They're not afraid to go against Donald Trump when something so egregious as this is in front of them. And I think, well, with the government, if they're coming after you and they want to take you down, they're going to do it. And I think at this point, they definitely want to get rid of Hegseth and take him down. He's an embarrassment. He's a danger to this country. I don't have any question in my mind. They will go hard after him, and he won't last long.
Yeah, I think they will take him down ultimately. Now, it might not be quick. I mean, we may not see movement on this till February, March, something like that, right around the time primary season starts in earnest when those elections start going so they can crow about it to their constituents. Well, yeah, we had to make a choice. Donald Trump, we love Donald Trump, but he picked a bad person with Hegseth, or Hegseth wasn't the person he sold himself to Trump as. Somehow blaming it on Pete Hegseth there. And then say, well, see, we had to get rid of him because he was doing this, that, and the other. I could see them making that move. And when this ball starts rolling, what it uncovers could not only lead to Pete Hegseth being out, it could lead to other people being gone. We hear that Pete Hegseth turned to, after the JAG officer said, yeah, you can't really do that. He turned to Pam Bondi and she said, oh, yeah, that's okay. It's perfectly legal. And Congress may say, okay, well, we got to get rid of Pam Bondi too, and just start cleaning house of Donald Trump's administration around him. And that may be one of the ways that they use to get rid of Donald Trump. If they get rid of some of the sycophants, maybe then that's where JD has enough cabinet members that would say, okay, we got to 25th that guy. You
Yeah.
know, this could be
But
part of a long game by Republicans.
I think there's no question that Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel are the top three that people are going to try to run out of their office. And what these people have to be concerned about too is once they're out of office and maybe Donald Trump is no longer president, they're in trouble for that thing that Will always talked about, the reckoning. They've all committed
Hmm.
crimes against this country. Literally, they've committed. You got Kash Patel with the cover up of the Epstein files. You got Pam Bondi with the cover up, among other crimes. You've got Pete Hegseth that's committed crimes with national security and maybe murder. Uh, these people aren't going to be safe once they're no longer under the wing of Donald Trump.
No, they're not. And one of the things I've talked about with, in regards to Pete Hegseth, now Donald Trump could ultimately pardon him, and that would prevent most of this. It won't prevent an impeachment because the only punishments for impeachment are removal from office and a lifetime ban from holding public office, federal office. So since there's no jail time, there's no financial penalty, nothing like that. And it specifically says in the Constitution, presidents cannot pardon for impeachment. Um, but if he doesn't get a pardon from Donald Trump, they could do to Pete Hegseth what they want to do to Mark Kelly. I believe because he was an officer. Now he was in the
Yeah,
National Guard, but I think that works the same way as the regular army. They could recall him and court-martial him. And I believe that the penalty for murder in the military is, like, I think, life in Leavenworth. And that could be what Pete Hegseth is staring at.
absolutely. And I don't know that he understands that. And the idea that people always say Donald Trump will just pardon him. I don't know that that's a foregone conclusion because if Pete Hegseth gets ripped apart, if he gets destroyed, and the press is really bad about him, Donald Trump doesn't need any more negative publicity. I mean, he gets enough on his own, but he has no loyalty to anybody. He'd be happy to see Pete Hegseth twist in the wind unless it was beneficial to him. And I'm thinking Pete Hegseth doesn't have 2 million to get the pardon, so I don't know that I'd guarantee that Pete Hegseth would get a pardon.
Well, that and the other thing, Donald Trump doesn't gain anything from pardoning Pete Hegseth. Not
No,
really. Because, like you said, all of the negative press, it's going to make Donald Trump look worse for giving him a pardon. But then there's the other side of it. Right now, if he has criminal liability hanging over his head and he gets called in front of Congress to say testify, he can plead the fifth. Did you, let's say they ask him, did you have a conversation with Donald Trump about blowing up the boats and using multiple strikes if necessary to make sure they sunk? He can say, I plead the fifth because because it would incriminate himself that he had that conversation that ultimately led to a murder. He gets a pardon. Him saying that there was a conversation about it, he's not criminally liable. There's nothing that it's not dangling over his head. He can't plead the fifth anymore. So he would have to just, unless he's facing a perjury charge or wants to try taking that, he would have to say, if the conversation took place, well, yes, I did. We had a conversation about that. Donald Trump knew we were going to do that. It would actually be the worst thing Donald Trump could do.
if I'm Admiral Bradley, knowing that I literally did something that was against the code of conduct and I could be convicted of it. Because he could, regardless of who told him. The fact that he took the order, he executed the order, he is now culpable. He is now complicit with whoever else was involved. And he literally could go on trial, get court martialed, go to jail. He could do all those things. If I'm the admiral right now and I see where Donald Trump is and what his future looks like, I would go into Congress and say, listen, if you promise, if I can get a deal where I don't get prosecuted, I'll tell you everything you need to know on Hegseth, on Trump, on whatever. Now, whether the Republicans would accept that, I have a feeling they might, but that's what I would do. I would try to save my ass because Donald Trump is not going to save your ass.
Well, the problem that you would run into, Congress doesn't have the authority to grant that kind of a deal because it's up to the
True.
attorney general to whether or not they would prosecute and pursue a case. So
So it
there's
could
a
go the other
layer
way.
there.
It could go the other way. Pam Bondi says, if you keep your mouth shut, we won't prosecute you. Okay, but that doesn't mean he won't be prosecuted in 2029 when the new president comes in.
Exactly. If they're looking at this like what it probably should be called, and that's murder, there's no statute of limitations for federal murder charges.
No,
The statute of limitation runs up when you run up, when your time is up, you know.
right, right.
So with all that being said, he's staring at a problem here, this Admiral Bradley. And um beyond that, like we were saying, he could end up facing a court martial or any kind of thing. Um and multiple members of the military under his command could be
Right.
facing courts martial.
Yeah, I mean, SEAL Team 6 was involved. They could get court martialed because they followed an unlawful order. I mean, the shit rolls downhill. They can go from Donald Trump all the way down to the guys with the boots on the ground, and they're all potentially complicit with this thing. They should be worried about this. I mean, Donald Trump won't be there forever. Pam Bondi won't be there forever. Maybe not very long at all. And when that changes, their whole lives could go to shit. So they need to figure out what they're going to do, whether they're going to be honest and tell the truth, or they're going to stand with Donald Trump and go off the cliff with him when he goes.
Yeah, they got to figure out what they want to do. And I think you're not going to see a lot of them want to stick with Donald Trump very long because, like you said, he's not going to be around long. I mean, we were all disappointed that Ed didn't get his prediction right of
Yeah,
Thanksgiving. But I think he said, you know, Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas, I think was actually what he said first.
yeah.
But so the second half of that prediction may still come true. But either way, Donald Trump not looking good. His health isn't going to hold, or the Republican Party is going to walk away from him. One of the two. I don't think he makes it to the end of his term, so he's gone. Pam Bondi would be gone. If they're going after Pete Hegseth this hard, well, pretty soon there'll be a new Secretary of Defense, and because I refuse to call them the Secretary of War, and whoever that person would be, they may go after everybody down the chain. They got to get their ideas and their priorities in line because they need to worry about what's coming next.
Now, don't you think, though, that if J.D. Vance ends up being the president, something happens to Donald Trump, fingers crossed. If something happens to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance becomes the president, don't you think he would blow out Hegseth, Bondi, and Cash Patel to get his own people or own loyalist with him? I would think he would. I think any president would.
100%. I believe the only one who may stay out of everybody in this current administration would probably be Marco Rubio.
Well, he is an excellent ass kisser, so yeah, probably.
But out of all of them, Rubio's the most qualified. And he's one that we're not hearing any scandals about. Not really. We're not hearing any
Not
scandals
yet.
really about. True. Yeah, is the key word there. But you got everybody else is just so woefully unqualified that it is hard to believe that they ever got to those positions.
Yeah, it is. It is. And of course, the other thing that's going on is the Epstein files. When this all
Hmm.
happened with Pete Hegseth, people said, oh, well, then they'll just forget about Epstein files. No, motherfucker, they are never going to forget about the Epstein files. They're supposed to be released on the 19th. We got the emails. And then yesterday we got this video. When I first heard they're releasing videos, I go, God damn it, here we go. Here we go, motherfucker. And then we see the video, and it's just basically a virtual tour of Epstein Island. I don't know what they hope to garner from that. Honestly, I think that was a message to Donald Trump saying, we still got more, bitch. We still got more, and there'll be more coming too. I'm guessing as they need it. If the Epstein files don't come out, expect some damaging shit to come out of the Epstein estate.
Oh yeah, I do. I expect it not only to come out of the Epstein estate, but any place that can provide corroborating evidence. But I think that virtual tour was not necessarily just aimed at Donald Trump. I think showing a little bit about just what the island looked like and was just to remind everybody that we've got video of things that happened on the island. We've got video about the island. It's more than just paper documents. And there's going to be a lot that comes out of this. And also, with the little bit of the clip I saw, looked like they showed a dentist's office or something on the island, which was
Well,
weird.
there was a dentist chair, and it looked like a dentist office, but who knows what these freaks were using this for?
Right. But one of the things that I thought of after seeing that was if any of the victims have any stories that correlate to a room that looks like that, now that we've seen a video of that,
Yeah.
it's going to give credence to their story of, especially if they've been talking about it for years. Like, oh, hey, there was a dentist's office and they did X, Y, and Z to me in the office. They're going to go, oh, okay, we saw a dentist office. People are going to put two and two together and go, this makes some sense now. This is not a good, even though it didn't really show anything bad that I saw. Um, the fact that it exists is not a good look for anybody that's in those files.
No, it's not a good look. And the thing about it is that it also showed people the extravagance of the wealthy and the middle class and the poor people in this country that are struggling to pay prices, keep their health care, and deal with inflation. That just further pisses off normal people against the wealthy that think they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Well, yeah, I mean, how many people do you know that have a dentist chair in their house? I mean, I don't know anybody.
I don't have a dentist chair. More importantly, I don't have any desire to have a dentist chair. I like to
True.
stay away from anything that involves pain, and that's what I get when I think of a dentist chair. So I'm wondering what you think here. Now they went through the House and the Senate, overwhelmingly voted to release the Epstein files. The deadline is December 19th. Donald Trump didn't scream a lot about it afterwards, and I think it has a lot to do with Donald Trump's typical attitude. Oh, that's way off in the distance. I'll figure something out before then, and we'll never release it. Make no mistake, Donald Trump does not want to release it. In fact, something came out yesterday, can't remember where it came out, some files that basically said Donald Trump and Pam Bondi were the two people that did not want to release the files. They're the ones that gave the word not to do it. So we knew that before, but now we have some verification of it. As we get close to the 19th, what do you think they're going to do to throw up hurdles or fuck this up? Because you know they don't want to release it.
Oh, they're going to try to do all kinds of things. They're going to claim ongoing investigation into Democrats. They're going to do all sorts. They're going to try to delay or prevent this by any means necessary. But as I've talked about, one of the things I think there is going to happen is if they try to protest too much or they try to throw up all kinds of hurdles and stuff, I think Republicans in the House are going to use that as their vehicle to get rid of Trump. That they're going to say, okay, we want the files. You've talked about releasing them. Our voting base and the 35% of the MAGA base wants Donald Trump or wants to release the files. That 30 to 35% of the base that is hardcore Trumper, right? They want the files released. And the Republicans want to keep those voters voting for them as long as they possibly can. So what I think is going to happen is if he fucks around too much with this, they're going to release what they have and then come back with articles of impeachment saying, okay, well, we know you're in the files. We know you're being blackmailed by Putin, or we know this or that, or and you are violating the law by not releasing the files and you're holding everything up. And they're going to move it along. And I think they may do that because they're hoping by you tying the files to Donald Trump, that way when they impeach him, that 30 to 35% of the MAGA base will still vote for Republicans afterward and be willing to move on from Donald Trump.
I think if they do fuck around with it and people are disappointed and don't get what they expect on the 19th, I think that's when you're going to start seeing some leaks from any place, from the DOJ, from the Epstein estate, from the Oversight Committee, to Joe Blow or some woman who has access to some things. Because you don't need much. You just need one picture or one video, and that will blow everything up for Donald Trump. And then after that, when Donald Trump's out of power, everything will come pouring out.
Yeah, we were already hearing, was it Michael Wolff who said that there's at least one picture in there of Donald Trump sitting there with a couple of underage girls topless sitting on his lap?
Hmm.
And if that picture alone would probably be enough um, for most of the country to accept that Donald Trump is deeper in the files and to be willing to walk away and move away. If there's anything worse than that in there, he would get I would say like 90 to 95%. Then you add the other 5% if there's actually a picture or a video of him blowing Bubba, and Bubba ends up being Bill Clinton.
Or, it doesn't matter who Bubba is, that whole thing would be an issue difficult
True.
for Donald Trump to control. Um, well, based on the stories we've heard, the evidence we've seen, the idea that there might be something worse than Donald Trump sitting with two underage girls on his lap isn't hard to imagine. It sounds like there were atrocities there, horrors that were committed there, and since he was in the business of blackmailing, those horrible videos and pictures exist. They've got to exist. The DOJ has had them all along. And I'll be honest with you, I think members of Congress have already seen some of those photos. They know what's in it. They're in a position to release it or don't have it. But there's a lot of people that know what's in that, and they're pushing this hard, knowing that the fallout is going to be fucking nuts.
Yeah, I think some of the ones that may have already seen it would probably include uh, Lauren Boebert, Massey, Nancy Mace, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, the ones that voted to release the files. They know, I think they've got an idea of what is in there, and that if this administration fucks around too much, they're going to go public with what they know and what they have. And I think when the final list of who did what and who was involved comes out, and I know it's not going to be like a straight checklist. We're going to have to do some digging, and there are going to be people who are going to put compilations together of what they figured out. You're going to be surprised by who was involved. A lot of people's careers are going to be ruined, as they should be. And you may see even more politicians beyond Donald Trump take a fall here. And all I got to say is good. Let them all go.
Yeah, Democrat or Republican, they can all go. I think the strategy would be here, instead of trying to take everybody down all at once, I think they do everything they can to focus on Donald Trump, take him down. Then when he's out of power, it's going to be so much easier releasing the rest of the files. So let's cut the head off the snake. Let's get him out of the way, and then we'll worry about all the rest of the files that need to be exposed. I mean, the idea that we've had these two sex traffickers, child sex traffickers, convicted, but we have done no investigations into anybody who they might have trafficked to. That makes no sense. And people will say, well, Biden didn't do it either. No, Biden didn't do it. And he had some restrictions that Donald Trump didn't have. But let's be honest as to why these people haven't been investigated, because they're rich and powerful, and politics will try to cover for them. That's what's been going on since it started. Both Republicans, both Democrats, they get treated special because they're rich and powerful. That's where it's got to stop. We've got to get
Yeah,
somebody that's willing to expose these fucks.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, the fact that they're rich and powerful is part of it. And I think you're right. Cut the head off the snake, get rid of Donald Trump is probably the first part. Also, if Pam Bondi was one of the ones that really didn't want to release the files, get her gone, bring in JD Vance. And I know people are worried about how bad JD Vance would be, but you bring in JD Vance, let him bring in his own attorney general. Hell, I think even Bill Barr would be more than willing to go after everybody on that list and let them go. Because to be fair, I'm pretty sure Bill Barr was the attorney general when they caught Epstein the first time. He was
Yeah,
the
I think it
one who was the
was.
attorney general when they went after Ghislaine Maxwell. And I don't like Bill Barr, don't get me wrong, but he was a horrible attorney general. Not as bad as
Yeah,
Merrick Garland, but he was horrible. And but I think he would still be willing to go with it. Whoever JD Vance would pick would have to be somebody willing to go after everybody in those files. Republican, Democrat, Independent, American citizen, international. If we can charge them, do it and take them down for whatever we can get them on and go from there. But get rid of Donald Trump first and then go after everybody else. But we need to have somebody in the DOJ, somebody as an attorney general who's willing to do it.
yeah. You know, see what you think about this. I've been thinking about this. They said after the election, if she won or only lost by single digits, which is what happened, there would be a lot of Republicans looking to retire or resign early. Now, we just heard a story yesterday that Nancy Mace is talking about resigning. She's tired of how women are being treated by Mike Johnson and the people in the House of Representatives. Um, I have a feeling that that election may have an impact on people wanting to resign and resign early. And I kept thinking to myself, why do they want to resign early? Do they just want to hurt the Republicans? Well, that could be it. But I'm willing to bet you may get some resignations before December 19th because they don't want to be in the middle of that shit when that finally hits the fan.
That could be that they think if they get out of Congress, maybe they'll get left alone, they'll get forgotten about.
Yeah.
Um, or they don't want to be there for the backlash that comes when the stuff starts hitting the fan and Donald Trump tries to go after anybody responsible. Um, don't know if that's going to be the way that plays out or not. But we could see lots of resignations. And why would they resign early? Well, yeah, it would be hurting their own party and sticking it to them. And it would also mean there would, depending on what time of the year it is, there would be special elections to fill the seat all the way up. I think most states allow it up till I think it's June or July,
Yeah.
where they would have a special election to fill it. Otherwise, what some states do is they would just run, they would have one election in November and the winner would start right after the election, finish out the term, and then also have won the following term, and basically get a couple free months in there for winning an election. Um, but you could see a lot of people cutting out early. Maybe it is to get rid of the Epstein files. Maybe it's going to be to avoid the shit show that comes next. And we don't know what the chaos the Republican Party is going to bring when this all gets released.
And of course, a lot of these people are terrified that they're going to lose with good reason. That election showed these people with smaller margins in their districts that they're in fucking trouble. And they don't want to go walk into this, spend a bunch of money, and get their ass kicked. Not only get kicked out of office, but suffer a lot of embarrassment and pretty much taint the rest of their career. I mean, that's what these people are thinking about. They don't want to come out of this as a loser and then try to come back as a loser and trying to get back into the game after this all settles down. There's a lot of reasons to resign. And, we talked about this. If we get, say, 10 people resigning now, and that puts the Republicans under the threshold of 218, that doesn't, even if they have a lower amount than the Democrats, say they have 214 and Democrats have 216, as I understand it, as you explained it before, that doesn't mean that the Democrats take control and Hakeem Jeffries becomes the speaker, correct?
That's the way I understand it. Now, I could be wrong, but I think since neither party has a full majority, it wouldn't change anything until one side or the other has enough special elections to hold the majority. Now, with the election of Van Epps, that will bring the Republicans up to 220. You lose
Mm-hmm.
Marjorie Taylor Greene in January, that's down to 218. Now, we're hearing Nancy Mace already is talking about resigning and maybe early. That's again 218. One more resignation there under, and now Democrats would have to sweep all those districts. No guarantee that's going to happen with Marjorie Taylor Greene's district being heavily red. But if you're looking at some of these districts, you said that there were several dozen that won by 0 to 4%. If they
Right.
go, oh, fuck, we're in trouble and decide to resign early, those are possible pickups for the Democrats. And it would not take many to put them over that 218 number to where, yes, we would have Speaker of the House Hakeem Jeffries. That is assuming the Democrats all vote for Hakeem Jeffries. And we're hearing, some people are a little disillusioned with Hakeem. So maybe he doesn't even get there. Maybe the Democrats have a little bit of a fight on their hands.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hakeem Jeffries has to go, unfortunately, and it kind of he kind of doubled down. You heard this story about Donald Trump pardoning the Democratic rep from Texas, a guy by the name of Cuellar, and he was indicted. He and his wife were indicted for taking bribes from foreign countries up to $600,000 and also doing some money laundering. And Donald Trump pardoned him, which I don't get. I believe I understand he's kind of a blue dog Democrat. He's from Texas, but I don't understand why he would do that. And then Hakeem Jeffries came out and applauded Donald Trump for doing that. That's not a good look.
No, that's a horrible look for Hakeem Jeffries. I hadn't heard that he had applauded Donald Trump for doing that,
Yeah,
but
he did.
that's not the image the Democrats need right now. You're trying to build a case to the American people that Donald Trump is corrupt, which he is, that their whole administration is criminal. And look at all these criminals Donald Trump is pardoning. And then when you have somebody who was or is a Democrat who was elected to Congress and got indicted and charged with all sorts of crimes, getting a pardon from Donald Trump, and you go, yeah, that's a good thing, makes you look just as bad. It really kills your messaging.
I'm just checking AI here to see um, what happens if the majority party falls below 218 and the minority party is less than 218. Hold on one second. Is 218 who is in power? We'll see what AI says. Everybody's scared, terrified of AI. They're going to take your job. Nah, they're not going to take your job if you know how to run the motherfucker. Um,
Yeah, it has its uses.
well, yeah, it has a lot of great uses. I mean, some of it is less than desirable, but what do you think was in Donald Trump's mind for pardoning this Cuellar guy? Is he just pardon happy? And because Cuellar doesn't have a lot of money, I would say, well, if it looks like he was able to pay him some money, he probably would do it. Okay, this is what it says. In the scenario you described, where neither the majority party nor the minority party holds 218 seats due to vacancies, third parties, or a split, no one is officially in power until the House elects a speaker. Unlike a parliament where, so even if they neither side has a majority, they will have to elect a speaker, and whoever the speaker is, then I guess they would kind of, presumably whoever has, even though they're both under 218, whoever has the most under 218 would then become the majority. That's interesting.
You would that sounds right, but I still think they would need 218 votes for a speaker. So you'd have to have one side or the other break ranks, I think, to get to the
Yeah,
speaker.
They say the immediate situation, the clerk, and we've seen this before, is in charge if the House convenes and no party has the votes to elect a speaker. The clerk of the House, a nonpartisan administrative officer, presides. Um, and limitations, if that happens, they cannot pass legislation, set an agenda, or send bills to the Senate. The House is essentially um, uh, frozen. Now, to take party, a party must elect a speaker, while 218 is the magic number when the House is full, 435 members. The actual rule is the candidate needs a majority of the votes cast for by a person. So you need you just need a majority of the votes, and if you're in that
Oh.
situation, you will need the other side to cross over. So it'll be interesting. I mean, the we talked about this before. The House could just be frozen and nothing will get done. But frankly, after 2026, that's pretty much what's going to happen anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, the big thing that's going to come after the midterms, in hell, even if this scenario with a bunch of Republicans flipping and if somehow Democrats get control in between there, nothing's going to get passed, nothing's going to get done. But the big thing to come out of it is going to be all of the very public investigations and
Right.
everything that we're going to look into. Democrats are going to open it up into anything and everything they can and bring down any and all Republicans they can very publicly. It is going to change public opinion of the Republican Party going into 2028.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be a non-productive couple of years in the House of Representatives. I heard some people talking about it, and people are suggesting that the House could go to the Democrats. They could get 35 up to 60 new seats in the House, which is significant. Um, and they said if it was only 35, that would have to be a disappointment. So most people are suggesting the House is easily going to go to the Democratic Party, in spite of all the gerrymandering and bullshit. Um, it's interesting. It's interesting. This last election, being with it being so close, because Tennessee is heavily gerrymandered. This district is gerrymandered. We may be seeing the results of gerrymandering where you take strongholds in the state, you parcel some of that out to go into the blue parts of the state, and then your wins are much, much tighter than you would expect. That may have been part of the reason why it was so close. But then you couple in the fact that Donald Trump is destroying the country, the economy's in the shitter, all the scandals. This whole gerrymandering thing, as you suggested one time before, may backfire on him.
Yeah, I said that, and then I was actually in Legal Dad's live. A lot of you might know Legal Dad from TikTok.
Right.
Um, he was talking about it, and he said the actual term for that is called dummy mandering, where you gerrymander your stronghold down to a point where you actually lose the seat, and that could end up backfiring. I have been saying for a while that I think the House is going to flip to the Democrats by 40 to 50 seats, probably at a minimum. And then with that being 40 to 50 seats in the House, that's safe. They can pretty much do whatever they want in the House. They'll be able to pass anything, do anything, and you can have with a 40 to 50 seat majority, you can have some dissenting. You don't have to vote everything along party lines all the time. And we won't be watching every single vote to see how every representative votes on most issues. Now, there are going to be big ones where obviously you want to know where everybody votes, but that's when you can have a few people go against you. And then I think the Senate could flip. I'm thinking they're going to pick up 4 seats. Realistically, I think they have a chance for 4.
Okay.
Um, but if they get 4, they get control of the Senate. And I think that's almost more important than getting the House.
I will say this, though. Most people after the 2024 election thought the House might be able to flip just by virtue of what normally happens during the midterms, but nobody really thought there was any possibility of the Senate flipping to the Democrats. Now times have changed, and you're obviously feeling very strong about that possibility. Not guaranteeing it, but at least there's some possibilities there.
Right. Well, you have 5 seats I can think of off the top of my head. starting here with Iowa. You have Joni Ernst not running for reelection. Now, I still haven't seen any candidate that's fully standing out on either side, um, except for the fact that for the Republican, Randy Feenstra is apparently the front. He's either front runner for Senate or for governor, but he's from the fourth district, the same district that gave us Steve King,
Right.
and he wasn't great, and he was all against. He voted numerous times against any sort of federal money for the state of Iowa and all that kind of stuff. And but I'm not seeing big candidates either way. With it being an open field, better chance for a Democratic pickup. You're not dealing with an incumbent. Then you go to Maine, and you got Graham Plattner, who is probably going to be the uh, Democratic nominee because I
Right.
can't think of her name. The
Susan
76 year
Collins.
old. No,
Oh
not
no,
Susan Collins.
that's you're talking about the former governor or something. I can't remember her name. Um, hold on, let me check it. Uh,
One of the two. Oh, there you go. Well, I was gonna say one of us froze.
Janet Mills.
Janet Mills. There we go. Yeah, but I think Graham Plattner is going to end up probably being the Democratic nominee. And I think he's got a good chance against Susan Collins. Susan, I'm always concerned, but still vote for whatever I'm concerned about anyway. I think she gets beat. You go to North Carolina, and you've got Roy Cooper, very
Very
popular
popular.
governor,
Yeah.
who has won statewide election. And the only reason he's not running for governor is because he's term limited. So
Right.
good chance he could pick up a seat. That's right there. You go to Ohio, and Sherrod Brown is running again, and he's won before in Ohio. Potential pickup, if I'm not mistaken. So there's, and then depending on Texas, you got that dipshit Ken Paxton, MAGA as MAGA can be, corrupt motherfucker. He's running to primary James Cornyn. If he happens to win that primary, it can only help the Democrat there. That could even be 5 seats, and that's not even talking about Alaska.
Right. You mean with Murkowski? Is she up for
Yeah,
election?
I
Yeah.
I don't know
And
if it's her seat or if it's the other seat, but one of them's up for election in Alaska. And is it Patola? Pertola?
yeah, I think that's what it is.
She's running again, or at least presumed to be the nominee. Very popular. Another potential, at least close race, if not a pickup. Democrats have a chance to take the Senate if they can get it by, they need 4 seats. If they get four, Donald Trump gets no nominees through the Senate the rest of his last 2 years. He's stonewalled.
Yeah. However, if they get 40 to 50 seats in the House, that's good. If they get 4 seats in the Senate, you're also not going to get anything accomplished because Donald Trump will never sign off on it unless you can get 60 votes in the Senate. And who knows? Maybe at that point the Republicans will be will be tired of Donald Trump and be willing to impeach him and convict him too. Who knows? But it's important that we get control, if for no other reason than to just put everything on hold until we can get things to settle down.
Yeah, exactly. And if Donald Trump is no longer in office, JD Vance is going to be weak, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's going to try the tough guy act to try to be Donald Trump. But if the Democrats have control of one or both chambers of Congress, and let's say they send him anything, right? He may ultimately just sign it not to look weak. Or, I mean, JD Vance, he's not as dumb as Donald Trump, but he's definitely more inexperienced. Maybe he tries to just not sign it, thinking he's going to do something, let things become law that way. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens if he becomes president around Donald Trump. I mean, at this point, we should have just let him build a office at Mar-a-Lago. Tell him he won. We could have told him he won the 2024 election. Let Kamala Harris be in charge, let her do all of the things, and he could go play president, much like they did with dad, Fred Trump, toward the end of his life, where they just gave him an office, gave him papers to shuffle around in, and he thought he was doing something.
Donald Trump can cosplay being a dictator. You know, one of the bigger things that are going on now, and with all this crazy shit going on, it's easy to forget to talk about it, but this is pretty important, and that's about the healthcare situation. By the end of this month, they've got to come up with um, a way to continue the subsidies on the ACA, or they're going to be literally tens of millions kicked off of or can't afford their health care. It's going to be devastating to a lot of folks. It sounds like they're trying to work on it, but Donald Trump has already said that he wouldn't sign anything that extended the ACA subsidies. And then he said, well, maybe we'll have to, but I won't sign. Who knows what the fuck he's thinking? But the Republicans got to be feeling a little nervous here because those ACA subsidies are as important or more important to the red states. And if they fail on that, they're going to take a beating even worse than what they're going to get in the midterms. How do you think this is all going to play out?
I think it passes. I think they do something bipartisan. Now, we may not see anything until it gets closer to the 18th, the
Of
19th in there,
course.
which is when Congress is set to leave for their break.
Good
You
point.
know,
Yeah.
they're set to leave for Christmas and New Year's, and that's probably when we're going to see something happen. They'll pass it the last minute of the last day, like they always do.
Yeah.
We had heard that they were working on a bipartisan deal that would basically extend the ACA for 2 years, extend the subsidies. Now, Donald Trump will probably sign it because what his constituent or what his supporters in Congress would say is, look, we didn't have time. It's at the end of the year. Go ahead, sign it. That'll give us 2 years to do your big changes. It'll give us time to work it out. And Donald Trump would probably go, yeah, okay, that sounds about right, and sign it. And they'll go,
Even
well, you'll
though
look like a
even though he's going to lose Congress in the next year, so yeah.
right. But you know how he is. Him
Yeah.
time, right? And if they tell him, well, we need more time to hammer it out to make sure that you need to sign this to give time to work on a deal so we pass it so it works exactly the way you want so it definitely succeeds. You don't want this to fail, right? And then he's going to go, oh shit, yeah, I don't want it to fail. Okay, I'll sign, and he'll extend it. That's kind of how I think it's going to end. But I also heard that they were talking about using a discharge petition to go Johnson to bring it for a vote. And
Well, they already have another discharge petition signed with 218 signatures already to go around Mike Johnson again. And this one is to try to stop people from insider trading in Congress. Mike Johnson
yeah,
wasn't going to bring it to the table. They already have a discharge petition. So this will be the second time in about a month or two that Mike Johnson has been rendered impotent.
third,
Third time.
third time. There
What's the
was a
other one?
third one, and I don't know if they've actually held the vote on it or not, or when it's scheduled. The third one is on unions and basically trying to
Oh.
override Donald Trump's executive order, where he basically said, "Well, we don't have to negotiate with the federal unions." And this resolution that's got it's a discharge petition, has enough signatures, basically says, "Yeah, you do. You got to deal with the federal unions."
Well, and they may have to do that very same thing with the ACA subsidies too, because Mike Johnson didn't sound like he was very motivated to put that on the floor either. I mean, don't you think if they keep going with these discharge petitions and they go around him, I think Nancy Mace or some, oh no, at least Stefanik came out and said she didn't believe that if they had a vote today, that Mike Johnson would have the support of the Republican caucus. He could not be elected Speaker of the House with these discharge petitions and just how things are going for Mike Johnson. That dude's got to be hanging by a thread at this point.
Um, Actually, I think Mike Johnson wishes he was hanging by a thread.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. I mean, he's actually. it may be the best move for Mike Johnson to ultimately just have them vote to vacate the chair at this point and bring in somebody else. Because he doesn't have control of his party. He doesn't have control of Congress. They're going around him at a breakneck pace. It's something like 6 times that they have actually passed a discharge petition that has ultimately become law. Not just passed it and held the vote, but actually became law. 6 times since 1930 something, 92, I think. Only 6 of them have ever become law, and Epstein Files was one of those 6. It is
Right.
ridiculous. But here you got now, in the span of 3 months, this would, if they use one on the ACA, that's number 4 that they've at least gotten to the floor for a vote, and that would end up getting sent to the Senate around Mike Johnson. We thought Kevin McCarthy was the weaker. No,
No.
it's Mike Johnson.
Well, it is. And don't you think the Republicans, the majority of Republicans, do want to extend the ACA, but because of Donald Trump, they're keeping their lips tight?
Yeah, they want to extend it. They know they have to, and that's why I said they're going to be able to convince Donald Trump to sign it by saying, "Look, you just got to give us more time to act. You hit us with this too late in the year. We didn't have time to draft it, the right piece of legislation. We got to have time to write it so it's perfect. So if we do it now and we rush it, you'll look stupid if it fails." And that's how you appease. That's how you appeal to Donald Trump. And if he thinks that giving him a year or two to write something that's going to work, if he believes, and by then they won't have control of Congress. And
Well, um, I think with the ACA, there's too much to lose, and like you said, and I've always said with CRs, they always do it on the last minute of the last day. It's always got to be dramatic. It's always performative. They will have to do it, uh, and if they get rid of Mike Johnson, who would they get to replace him? I mean, it's not only about picking out the right guy based on what's going on and having to deal with Donald Trump. Who would want that fucking job?
out of the Republican Party, look at the people they've brought out the last couple times. Jim Jordan, he got a
Tom
few
Emmer.
votes. Tom Emmer, I don't think they've got anybody. Um,
They may try Scalise, but he got blown out last time he tried too.
they could try for a bit, and then ultimately, and I've said it before, depending on how long it goes and how bad nobody wants it, if there doesn't seem to be anybody, it may end up being one of two things that the Republicans decide to do. I mean, we had never heard of Mike Johnson before he got put up because,
No,
there's 435 members of the House. You don't hear about everybody.
he was
Um,
popular on Grinder, but we didn't know him.
we didn't know that. We didn't know that then. Yeah. But what they might do is pick somebody else like him and just say, look, you've been here a while. You know how the rules go. You just got to, we're going to lose the House in November, more than likely. You just got to get us through. They could do that. But if they can't find anybody willing to do that after a couple of weeks, wouldn't take very many Republicans to turn around and go, look, we got to at least be able to get some work done. Now, it wouldn't change who runs committees or anything like that, but they may have no choice but to say, okay, we're going to side with Hakeem Jeffries.
Think about the perfect storm here. What if Mike Johnson gets hung out to dry and he's gone, and then we get a bunch of resignations, and then they have a fewer amount of people than the Democrats? It's conceivable that Hakeem Jeffries, at least at this point while he's in leadership, could be the Speaker of the House just because there's no one else willing to do it. And can you imagine what would happen if Donald Trump had to deal with Hakeem Jeffries on a daily basis? Now, Hakeem Jeffries is an establishment Democrat, but I don't think those two would see eye to eye very much. That would drive
No,
Donald Trump nuts.
they wouldn't. And the bigger thing in there is since it's not some losing a chamber mid Congress is not something that happens very often.
Right.
Um, you would end up he would have to deal with the public humiliation of that. Again, I was over in Legal Dad's live, and I didn't go back and look it up myself, but somebody in the comments said that in 2001, the House with parties because of a Republican defecting to Democrats, not the House,
Okay.
The Senate in 2001 switched parties mid Congress because of a defection. Well, if that was true, and that did happen, um, Bush had to own that, deal with that. Now, Donald Trump would have to own it and deal with it if that happens. And Donald Trump's ego, he's not going to want to be known as the guy who lost the House without there even being an election. Oh, good
Yeah.
Lord. He would blow a gasket. Of course, he'd probably rant and rave about Democrats cheating somehow. It's not fair, and the House was stolen from him, and all typical talking points.
Let me ask you this. Do you think if the midterms come and they get blown out, blue tsunami, they get blown out, and some of these people resign beforehand, before the election, because they knew they were going to get blown out, do you think you will see any Republicans looking at the Republican Party, seeing it's pretty much decimated? You think you'll get any of these Republicans, maybe more of the moderate Republicans, switching to the Democratic side? Is that possible?
It might be. It might be possible, actually, that they do just that, that they try to save face and go, I tried to hold it out. I tried to save my own party, but there's no redemption here. They're definitely the party of Trump. And, I can't do it anymore. I've got to switch. It's possible. And some of them may end up trying to flip parties ahead of the election. Maybe, although with primary season coming up, maybe not before the election, just to save their own seat so
Yeah.
that they could get the Democratic nation if they are afraid of losing that primary run and getting primaried out.
A lot of people there's essentially two parties in the Democratic Party. There's the
Mm-hmm.
progressives and there's the more moderates, the more centrist. Okay. Do you think with the closeness of the race in Tennessee, Mom Mom Donnie winning in New York, and some of these other younger people that are running, do you think there's more a trend to the progressive side, not just the centrist, not just the middle, more left to try to right the ship after we've gone so far right?
I do. I think that's where they're ultimately going to go. Is they're shifting farther left, trying to, like you said, right ship and make it better. Um, and we got to go with more progressive. Can't just do more of the same. More of the same isn't working.
No, no. As much as the Republican Party is basically destroyed, and I'd be happy to argue with anybody about that, it is destroyed, especially looking at what we may be looking at in the midterms. Do you think the Democrats are at the point where they realize that they have to go through an overhaul too? I mean, we've talked about the establishment people. The old people need to get out of there. We need more younger people, and we're starting to see some of them emerging. Do you think Democrats will go through an overhaul? The establishment will get pushed aside, and we'll have some changes, maybe more progressive changes in the Democratic Party?
I think so. I think there's going to be that, especially we'll get rid of some of the older establishment Democrats. Um, Depending on like if Chuck Schumer gets primaried and say he loses, you have Nancy Pelosi not running again. Some of the longtime Democrats, there's an effort to seriously primary them out. If they lose, or even if it becomes a closer race than they're comfortable with, you know, you think somebody like Chuck Schumer should probably win with his history, 85 to 90% of the vote primary. You would think if it's close, yeah, they start going, okay, we got to do something. We've got to switch it up. We've got to change to a different tactic and go with something else. Um, I saw somebody on TikTok was suggesting that in the coming years, you may ultimately see the moderate Democrats leave the Democratic Party and become Republicans and move the Republican Party more moderate. And I think I suggested that a while back that they may do just that, um, and have the Democratic Party go even farther left. I don't think it'll be quick. I think it would be slow. But that may be the only hope the Republican Party has of staying relevant.
Well, that's a good point. As I said, the Republican Party at this point is decimated because it bears no resemblance to what the Republican Party once looked like. It's a totally different world. It's the Trump Party. And when this is all done, for as big a mess as it's caused, they've got to do something different. They've got to redeem themselves somehow. Do you think they make that attempt right away, especially after the 2026 election when they get their ass kicked? Presumably they got to get rid of Donald Trump to take that fucking mess out of it. But do they try to redeem themselves, maybe make themselves more normal? And how can they even do that in a short period of time?
I think what they're going to do, and I've said this before, but I think they are going to, if they don't remove Donald Trump before the midterms, I think he should be counting his days after. And they would probably wait until at least January 20th. That way, in their minds, if their strategy works, JD Vance could have a full 10 years. Um, but they remove Donald Trump, go with JD Vance, have JD Vance walk a more middle ground, have him walk the line, especially with uh, if there ends up being a Democratic controlled House and Senate, where they set up JD Vance to be this sympathetic character in 28 of, well, I tried to fix all the problems from the Biden administration and everything, but I couldn't fix anything because the Democrats were blocking me at every turn. So you got to give me another term and you got to give me Republicans in Congress again so I can get things done. I can see him trying that strategy, trying to rebuild away from Donald Trump toward the middle. It's not going to work,
No, it
but I
won't
think
work.
they're gonna try it because they don't have anything else. And then what they're gonna do is, while going with that strategy, assuming they get their asses kicked in 28, like I think they will, they're gonna turn around and if things aren't fixed fast enough in 2030, they're gonna go back to a approach, but go, well, see, Democrats didn't fix it fast enough. So you
Right.
got to put us back in charge and we'll fix we'll fix it this time for sure. I can see their playbook. I know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I know what they're going to do, but it really depends on how bad it gets as to whether or not people believe them when they talk about the bullshit they do. Oh, we can fix it, just like you brought down fucking prices on day one. I think people are going to go through so much trauma with what this administration has done. They are just going to be so tired and so depleted because of prices, because of all the egregious shit that's going on. You think if JD Vance became president and they wanted some kind of redemption and they wanted to normalize what the Republican Party is, does JD Vance take over the presidency and then say, okay, we're getting rid of the tariffs, we're getting rid of ICE, we're getting rid of all the things that Donald Trump did that caused all these problems? Is that one way he tries to redeem himself?
I think so, but I also don't think he does it quickly. I think he does it all like day one. I think he tries to do as much of it as he can, as quietly as he can. If the tariffs are still a thing, maybe he just, you know, he signs an executive order and hopes it goes under the radar to reverse them. Those kind of things. I think he tries to do as much of it as he can without drawing attention to it. And then once people aren't talking about it, then he comes out and crows about, well, things are much better now that this and this and this and this. And he can say, see, if he can get rid of the tariffs without calling attention to the fact that he eliminated them, and if it helps the economy, the economy's better under me. Look what I did. And he can
Yeah.
do it in a way that doesn't call out Donald Trump because he's still worried about, I think, or he's going to be worried about alienating that Trump supporting base that will never forgive him otherwise.
Yeah, maybe. It depends on how badly Donald Trump does. I've said before, my greatest dream would be that he'd be on stage, choke on a Big Mac, and fall to the ground and shit himself to death. That would be the best thing because he would be embarrassed. But part of me wants to see him get impeached by the Republicans, standing on the sidelines as JD Vance takes over, and listen to that loud motherfucker keep talking when nobody cares. I'd like to see him suffer that embarrassment because that will be devastating to Donald Trump.
Oh, that would be embarrassing. But the thing is, he's gonna even if they impeach and remove him, it's not gonna be that nobody will care to listen to him. They're still gonna, certain parts of the media would amplify him, and he is gonna probably tear down the Republican Party as he goes,
Well,
and
that's
that's
what
what
I
they're
mean.
trying to avoid.
That's what I mean. It would be good to have him alive and squawking because he would still continue to destroy the Republican Party while JD Vance is trying to normalize things.
Yeah, and that's why I said I think he would try to do everything, Vance would try to do everything as quiet as possible so you don't get the blowback from Donald Trump and just, well, yeah, I got everything going again, things are going better. And he could even try to say that it was something related to what Donald Trump was doing and somehow give Donnie credit. But Donald Trump is going to be blowing up everything and everything in his path if he gets removed.
Yeah, it's going to be it would be kind of fun to watch him spin around and scream and yell when he has zero power. Then he will be very much like his father who sat in an office acting like the boss in a cosplay situation. Um, I mean, we want to watch Donald Trump lose his mind even worse than he's lost it already. Take away all his power, embarrass him by being impeached for the third time and having him convicted and kicked out. That motherfucker is going to be loud. As long as he's
Oh,
not being prosecuted or something, he's going to be squawking a lot and it's going to be hilarious.
oh yeah, he is going to be squawking. He is going to be very loud about it. It is going to be something to see. Uh, Donald Trump is not going to let this thing go and go slightly because he would view everybody that goes against him as disloyal. He would have to bear the burden of being the first president to be impeached and removed. We've done that. We've come close, but we've never removed a president. And he would have to go down in history as the worst president of all time. I mean, we already think that's what's going to happen anyway.
I think
Now,
he's got that nailed.
uh, whether or not he would take a resignation in exchange for a pardon, I don't know that his ego would let him do that.
Though, I've talked about this before and I've said that too. He would never resign because his ego won't allow him. But I keep forgetting my experience with narcissists. They will double down, triple down. They never give up unless they come to the realization that there's no way out. And the last thing a narcissist does is fucking runs when they are totally destroyed and they've got nothing. They go into hiding, they run away. So if the option is to be embarrassed mightily by being impeached for the third time and being convicted, he might choose resignation just to make up some excuse because he loves excuses. Well, I'm too sick. My doctors say I'm working too hard. I got to get out of here. I could see him doing that. And I know a lot of people don't think his ego will allow him to do it, but I don't think his ego will allow him to be absolutely embarrassed by an impeachment and a conviction.
You might be right, but the one thing you got to remember is he's not in his right mind. The dementia, that at
Yeah,
least what
that's
we
true.
suspect is dementia. He may not. You said he'd have to come to the realization of his own that he is backed into a corner, and he's got
Yeah.
no choice but to run. Problem is, I don't know if his brain is going to allow him to come to those kind of conclusions. He's not all there.
Well, he's got two problems. He's not all there. And I think he's too lazy to go out and get his own information. And I think we're finding out now that the people around him are feeding him information he wants to hear, not the truth. I mean, that's why I think he really believes prices are down, that he believes his polling is great, because that's what they're telling him around him. They just want to keep him satiated so he doesn't go off half cocked and start firing people and whatever. I don't think he's very well informed and he's too lazy to get it for himself. He likes, that's the one thing about narcissists. If you tell them good news, they'll say, okay, that's great. That's what I want to hear. That's the good news. I'm not going to consider anything else. Even if it's a lie, that's what they want to hear and that's what they're going to go with.
Exactly. He doesn't care about being told anything other than everything is going great. You're well loved. People think nothing but the best of you. That's what he wants to hear. And if he's told anything else, it's Fox News. They're a failing newspaper. Or did I say Fox News? It's fake news. Um, you're a failing paper, or you should your license revoked for even saying that, or quiet piggy, or whatever. He'll say to him. He doesn't want to hear anything other than everything is great. People love you.
Well, that's the other part of it is the media. We're starting to see some media people starting to push back. And he doesn't like hard questions. He loses his shit when he gets hard questions. And I think the media are whores essentially. Whatever's popular, whatever's going to get views, they're going to hop on that bandwagon and do it. And for the longest time, it was supporting Donald Trump, the shit show, because he's good TV, good video, and they're just going to do whatever he wants to do because it's going to make them money. But there's always a turning point when you deal with people like this. As much as they like to build you up and give you all the support, when you start to crash out, everybody loves to jump on that bandwagon. And I'm wondering if now that we're seeing some pushback from some reporters, if this isn't the start of the decline and the ultimate monkey pile on top of Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, you could be right there. Like these reporters, once they realize that they're getting good views from tearing him down, it's no different than anything else. You see somebody doing something, getting a lot of views, should jump on board. So these reporters, they're all gonna be jumping on that same bandwagon. They're gonna be going after him left and right and center. Just well, you said this, but here's the truth. He's not going to want to hear it. And he's going to have more and more outbursts at these people for just asking him the simple questions, trying to prove what we already know. And that's how bad he's feeling.
Everything Donald Trump has done to this point has been based on fear, whether it be other Republicans or the media. They're afraid of what he might do. They're now starting to show they're not as afraid of him, like with the Epstein files vote and such. Once people are no longer afraid of Donald Trump, heaven help Donald Trump because he is fucked. Once they're not afraid of him, they see him for the bully he is, and they can't wait to get what's coming when they have the opportunity.
Exactly. They are going to turn on him hard. I mean, the one reason they didn't show him being as completely inept as, he should have them the way that they should have all the way back in 2015. If the media had handled him the way he deserves to be treated as a complete and total clown, he never would have gotten elected.
Right.
But they kept playing it because, oh my God, the he's doing is so outrageous. It's good ratings, it's good TV, and we're making money by showing it. So they kept showing it. And then he gained a following. And I said before, he fell ass backwards into the presidency. He started picking up a little bit of steam. Pretty soon he's gaining, some supporters, and the Republicans didn't answer. But the media didn't help by not showing him. They gave him all sorts of free ad time by showing his stupidity. And there was at least a segment of this population that looked at it and went, man, he's different. He's an outsider. I like that about him. And he swung a whole section of votes.
Well, I think the media is changing its tune a little bit too. As much as they went after Joe Biden for being Sleepy Joe and maybe not cognitively solid, they're now starting to turn that on Donald Trump. He's saying crazy shit. He's posting things on Truth Social at one a minute, and they're crazy. He's falling asleep in cabinet meetings. The media is starting to pick up on that, and they're starting to push back on it. Finally, it took 10 years to fucking do it, but they are doing it. And that's not going to help Donald Trump at all.
No, it's not. And the more they show him, like even Fox News had to cut away. Like I don't know if they turned the camera or whatever, but their coverage, it was very evident Donald Trump was asleep. They started doing a voiceover and doing this and that while he was clearly sleeping in that cabinet meeting, or at least it looked like he was asleep. Now, the Republican talking point for that has been, well, he just had his eyes closed. He was just listening intently. I've said this on other episodes of the podcast. He reminds me of my grandfather in that when my grandfather was in his early, like, he think my grandfather lived to be, was it 91 or 2, I think.
Mhm.
I'd have to go back. He's been gone several years now, but he lived in to be into his early 90s. And toward the end, he was suffering from Alzheimer's. And he would do that. He would just nod off in the middle. Like, we'd be sitting there having a conversation with him. He'd just nod off, wake up 20 minutes later, like nothing happened. Just his eyes would look like he'd been awake the whole time. And that's what Donald Trump is reminding me
Yeah.
of that same mentality. He may want to be awake, may be trying to stay awake, but his body just physically won't let him.
I know at my advanced age of 65, I might be doing something and then I can be in the car with my wife or on the recliner and I can fall asleep. And my granddaughter thinks it's hilarious. Uh, my son, my youngest son, her uncle, taught her how to do a wet willy. Uh, I get jumped on frequently. She makes fun of me because I fall asleep. So I can relate to where Donald Trump is at this point. You get old, you fall asleep. At least I'm not trying to run the free world. I'm doing a fucking podcast. So if I fall asleep now and again, I'll be fine. We're coming to the end of the Rational Boomer podcast, but we're also coming to the end of the Analytical Iowan podcast. For those
Yeah,
that didn't catch it first, this is a dual podcast. I'm going to post
yeah,
this as my podcast. Eric is going to post it as his podcast. So both
yes.
groups, both audience will get a chance to see these thirst traps that we've been presenting for the last hour and a half.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I want to thank you for doing this. This was great. We always have a good conversation. Um,
Always.
Now, if you're catching this over on the Analytical Iowan podcast, obviously you know where to find me. TikTok at Analytical Iowan, YouTube Analytical Iowan, Spotify, Blue Sky, also the same thing. And then obviously Mike, you know where to find him over at Rational Boomer on all of those same locations.
Yeah, and I said something on TikTok yesterday that I'll just reiterate here. TikTok's in kind of a weird spot. Both Eric and I are on TikTok, and there was a time when you got the views and the Creator Fund paid you a certain amount of money. Now, if you're on TikTok, you're seeing a lot of Creator Fund people um, um, claiming that they've got kicked off of the Creator Fund. And frankly, for all intents and purposes, it sounds like TikTok's trying to wean itself off the Creator Fund and not pay any creators anything. Now, I don't do this for money, but if I'm doing something for TikTok or any other platform and they're making money off me, I think I deserve a taste because I'm not one of those people that's going to ask other people, the listeners, to pay for anything. I will never do that. I won't go on Patreon. I'm not going to ask you for subscriptions. And I'm not faulting anybody that does that. They're fine. They can do what they want. I just don't want to do it. I don't feel good about doing it. If I can go on a platform and make some money for the platform and they pay me a little commission for doing it and they pay me and the people get to keep coming for free, I'm good with that. So
Mhm.
if there are people, again, you don't have to do it for money. You do what's convenient to you. But if you do want to support me, all you have to do is watch my shit on YouTube or Spotify because they will pay me. TikTok, I'm afraid that's going to be nothing more than uh, uh, TikTok shop and AI shit eventually. Everything has a shelf life, an expiration date, and I'm fearing that TikTok is nearing that with the new transition, with new ownership, and all the bullshit that's going on. So,
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, I've noticed for myself, and I'm not necessarily doing this for money. It'd be great to get to a point when this is what I could do, and not have to hold down a job on top of it. That'd be great. But I'm barely making anything. I think I was telling you before we got on last month, I made a whole $27 from TikTok. Not, I mean, that's not even enough really to cover anything anymore. It was up from the last 2 months before, but the money's just not there. They're not paying nearly as well. Just in the few months I've been in the creator fund, they're not paying what they were. And
No,
for people who are dependent on that, who have decided to make it their livelihood, and if they're relying on TikTok, they better figure something else out. They better switch to the other platforms. That's one of the reasons why I've got everything up on uh, YouTube and Spotify as well.
absolutely. I'll just say this, and the Creator Fund for a period of time, I got a lot of followers. I had a lot of views. I made pretty good money off of it, for some old guy sitting in his living room. But in the last 6 months, the views have gone down. I'm still doing pretty well with views, but the amount I get paid in the Creator Fund is about 15% of what I was normally getting paid. And I'm doing nothing different, doing more TikToks, and I'm getting similar views. So something's going on over there. I'm growing tired of TikTok. I feel obligated though because I've got a lot of followers over there, and I just don't want to abandon them and not be there. But those of you listening that listen to me on TikTok, check out YouTube or Spotify and see how that works for you, because there may come a time when that happens where I'll just be on those platforms and no longer on TikTok. I don't foresee it happening soon, but with TikTok, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, exactly. And if something were to happen and TikTok were to go away completely, I'd still be doing what I'm doing. Just the videos would be going up on YouTube first, and uh, you know, I would just start there, and maybe we all migrate to a new platform. There is Blue Sky. There's other platforms out there.
Yeah.
Something will replace TikTok ultimately, and when it does, we're going to just have to deal with it.
When there's something to replace TikTok, never fear, the thirst traps will be here.
Yes, 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 we will.
Okay, now we're at the end of the show and we have a problem here because it's your show and it's my show. We both have typical outros for the show. So we both
Go
have
ahead
to
and
do
do
an
it.
outro. Do mine?
No,
Well,
just go
you can
ahead.
do my outro is, thanks for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Go ahead, Eric. Do what you do.
Well, basically the same thing. Thank you for taking the time to join me. Of course, we're going to be back tomorrow. There's always shit to talk about because with this administration, there's always something going on. They don't give us a break. So I'll be back tomorrow.
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk to you soon.